Okay, let's talk about passwords. Passwords are probably not going away anytime soon. We're kind of stuck with this as our bare minimum way to access resources that are intended for us and not necessarily everyone else. So maybe you still have a computer in the house that doesn't require a password to log in. That's really one of the last things standing. It's even to the point where I almost have to log into my TV now. When you open
Ah,
up your TV, you might see the different profile pictures, and if you have young people sharing a TV, when they click on the adult profile, you might have to put in a PIN now just to identify you versus the other users. And we can save our preferences in email, and we're kind of used to that on our computers. But in that one case, you might not have a password to log into your computer, but everything else we've just gone crazy with it. There was a time where we probably all could remember having 30 different websites that we logged into, or a few passwords that we used for those 30 things that were important, and that was it. And now I probably have 800 passwords or more in my password manager. And it's not just my own passwords, but all the passwords that I use at each place that I've worked, each place that I've ever worked, all the people that I help with, any information I need to save that's secure, that needs to be secured. It's all like shoved together in this one pile of passwords. So it's a big responsibility for us. And it wasn't always this way. I mean, if you look way back in the 2000s, we had a lot of passwords that were just 8 characters long, 6 to 8 characters long. But then your workplace was making you change them every 2 months or every 3 months.
oh my God.
That was totally wrong, by the way. It was totally made up. NIST has admitted to that, but having to change your password at work or on your email every couple months was annoying, but the passwords were short, so it was really easy to just add 1, 2, 3 at the end of it. No big deal. But now we want to use very long and unique passwords, and we don't change our passwords all the time. We just change them when there's a problem. Because when you have 5 passwords, yeah, you can change those. But when you have 800 passwords, it would take all year to go through and change those. We used to have like the XKCD comic shows, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. I'll point that out over here. Uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, all these complex rules.
Mhm.
But now the focus is we want to have a longer password because longer is going to be stronger. We still want to have some complexity, but we want to have longer passwords and a less predictable pattern. So we don't, it's a it's hard to avoid dictionary words, but then it's easier to remember dictionary words. So long passwords with random words that don't have any relationship to each other, um, those are those are better rules these days. So if we, I don't know about you, I used to memorize all my passwords. I was pretty good. I probably had 20 different username password combinations memorized at one time, and I could just sit down and log in. When that started to get complicated, when I got up above 50, I started building a database to manage my passwords. So when I was sitting at my desk, I could have a little more variety in the passwords. That was way back in 2006, I think. So, but now everybody's using a password manager of some sort. A lot of times it's just built into the browser or your phone, or you're using something that's an open source or third party password manager. So these are some of the better practices today. And we've got a link over here to this to the NIST special publication. That's just for the IT folks. When they give you a hard time, you send them that link. They'll spend all day going through it. So yes, our passwords still matter. We're still using our, second factor authentication, or you might have your multi-factor with your biometric and fingerprint. But passwords are still one one part of the authentication scheme. And it's really easy for us to think about this in a way that we just completely know. When you go to the ATM, you have a card in your hand and you know your PIN number. So you put the card in, you type in your PIN. That is two types of authentication. If you just had the card, it's not the same because anybody could have your card. You also want to have that secret that you know. So we still will fall back to passwords though, because if you have a authentication key, it can fail. You could accidentally run your hardware key through the washing machine and not be able to log in. So there's usually a way for a website to fail over for you to log in with just your email address, which by the way, your email really needs the best password that you have. And we don't want to have small passwords anymore, especially ones that are just numbers. Um, that's this new study in 2025 right here found lots of bad passwords. So what are we worried about? Because, there's got to be a reason that we're going to bother doing this. We're worried about people using passwords that they steal from one website and using it on another website, just reusing it. We're worried about people tricking us on email so that we type in our username and password into a website that looks like our bank but isn't. And we're worried about people stealing all of the data that all of our companies seem to be letting out there, just leaving them on the internet without any protection, and people just downloading all those and trying to break into them using brute force computing. So it's nice when we can add the extra stuff. So what do bad passwords look like? Let's take a look. These were the top 10 most common passwords 2025. Got a couple of links here for you. So I'll take it's hard to believe that these are still being used. It used to be password 123 at least, but people are still doing the little keyboard tricks here. These are still common. Let's just take a look. I'll grab this password 123456 and let's see how strong is this password.
Got
So
it.
this is a tool. This tool is kind of old now. I think this tool might be 10 years old. I should go check the date on here. But I love this tool because even a decade ago, with the best computing power available, that password takes really like microseconds. We'll focus on the middle number. This is somebody downloads the database and tries to get in. They're going to get in. So what if you say, well, let's make it longer? We said we make it longer, 789. Okay, they're still getting in a tenth of a second
Yeah.
with this password. And you can notice there's no uppercase, there's no lowercase, there's only digits, there's no symbols. Okay, so what if I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I did that again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, now we've gotten longer and we're probably a little more protected. They're going to crack into a lot more passwords before they crack into ours, but it's still not very random. So there's not a lot of entropy here. So let's go back and take that second one that was password. I'll just type in password. I'm sure that if it wasn't you, it was somebody used password because the box said password in it. So you just type password and you're fine. I mean, it was 20 years ago. Well, maybe 30 years. 20 years ago, I think we knew better. But 30 years ago, you could almost understand. And when the password was a little more difficult, you wrote it on a post it note and you stuck it on your keyboard. That was always good. I like the ones they wrote their password on a post it note and stuck it on their computer. And then I could sit down and log in for them. So I just wonder let's see what happens. First, I'm going to add some numbers. So I just have password. It's going to take 2 seconds. Assuming the bad guys are dumb, it'll take 2 seconds. In reality, the bad guys check password before they start randomly going through stuff. So the common passwords will all be in the first milliseconds, whether it's true or not. So let's add some numbers. 1, 2, 3. Okay, well now I have 2 green lights, so I'm getting a little more entropy that you can see with the search spaces here, a little more entropy, and now maybe we won't be the first ones to be hacked into. But what if I change my password to capital P? Well, now I have a lot more entropy. I've got uppercase in the search space here. You could see there's a lot more that the computer has to search through. And the brute force happens like you would imagine. You say 0000, 0001, 0002, 0003, and you just keep going. So they'll try all of those, and then you have to do uppercase and lowercase. You have to try it in every position, and on and on and on and on and on. So it's possible that this password, even though you shouldn't use it, this is one of the common ones that gets tested before they start brute forcing. This theoretically could be a decent password, maybe taking years to protect you. But if we just took something totally random, and I'm going to just use my computer to come up with the random words. So, oh, it didn't copy that. I have a little program that I wrote to generate these. So this was just a 3 random words picked out from a list and chosen randomly with a hyphen. So Katrina relatives borrows. That's not terrible. We could still make it better. We should use an uppercase in here and maybe add a number. But let's just look at the bottom. 600 billion trillion centuries. I'm not worried about that password. Yes, we could make it better. And if somebody steals encrypted data and that's my password, not such a big deal. I'm not worried about it. So I'm going to change this to a capital K. And now I went to 1,000 trillion trillion centuries. And I'll just say 42. Now I'm in the 100 million trillion trillion centuries. But it's a little long, and nobody wants to type all that. So I'll make it Katrina borrows 42, and I'm still at 13 trillion centuries. So if this was the password that you'd come up with, that's a pretty good password. It's got everything in it. So something like this as one approach is pretty good. Now let's go over to Bitwarden. Password, is it here? No, password generator. Oh, shoot. Where's my password? Bitwarden password generator. Try it again. So the other link I was going to get ready. Oh, come on. Being overprepared. Okay. It's password hyphen generator. I'll just remember that. So we'll scroll down, and when you have a password generator, this is the kind of password that we can generate. Let's see. We can tell it, make it a password, include some symbols, make it 14. Do we care if it's 14 characters? Let's make it 20 characters. I'll copy that to the clipboard, and let's go throw this in the tester. And I've got 20 characters, and I'm in the million trillion centuries. This is a great password. It's even better than the Katrina borrows 42. But you already memorized Katrina borrows 42. And you will not likely memorize this.
No.
So this kind of password is really great to use in your password manager. So if you're using Bitwarden, like I'm using Bitwarden here, then you can store hundreds of passwords that look just like this. They're a real pain to type in if you have to type it somewhere. But then you have a little peace of mind. I'm not going to worry about that. Not going to worry about that. So if your passwords look like these, and I know in the 2000s, I was guilty of making a password that had some things like this too. I had to type it all the time. I had to memorize it. All the best the best knowledge, the best information was to do all these random things. So, really, what we're looking for is length. So, I'd say make it 12. Yeah, at least 12 characters is not going to be bad. But if you can use something, some random words like we did, then it can be even longer. And just switching out the at sign for the A or a zero for an O doesn't really add a lot of security to it. One of the keys, and this is where the password manager really comes in handy, is ideally every website, every service that you log into will have its own password. So that means when you log into eBay, you have a password for eBay that no one else uses. When you log into PayPal, you have a password for PayPal that's not used by anywhere else. You don't use it on any other website. And then when you go and you log into the Saddleback College website, you have a different password that you don't use anywhere else. And when you log into your bank, et cetera, et cetera, you know what I'm talking about. So then we have one more option here, and this goes with our ATM card example.
I have a question.
Yes, Kathleen.
Why would past phrases beat complex gibberish? I would think the gibberish would be impossible to guess or work out where the phrases could be.
Well, it's the length. Now, if somebody knows you and they think that maybe you use your favorite sailboat or your favorite actor or dogs or children, they might guess they might guess login information based on knowing you personally. But the computer, when the computer goes in to guess, it has to just guess in order. It just starts with all the words in the dictionary and a bunch of combination of dictionary words and all the top, 10,000 most common passwords. And then it just starts going A, B, all the way until it gets through all the letters. And then it goes B,
Huh.
C, A. So the longer passwords take an exponentially longer time to break. So it's sort of a drawback of a 20 character password that you can put together, um, like um, Katrina leaves 42. That's going to be less, maybe it's going to be slightly less secure than 20 characters completely random. But when we're talking trillions of centuries, that distinction might not be important to log into the website where we ordered our new Pebble Time 2 watch, if that makes sense. So, I for the anyone watching this outside of the class, you might not know I'm a security focused professional, and I like to draw a line between what's the practical step we can take and what are the benefits that we get from going through all the trouble. So, for example, you have a bank account and your bank account has a username and password. Well, if you were one of the people that were tricked in this latest USAA scam that went through and they had you change your password to something they knew, they could immediately log in and the bank is not protecting you. USAA Bank does not check to see whether you log in one state and then a minute later log in somewhere else in the world and transfer money. They're not checking for that. That seems obvious when I say it out loud. You're like, well, of course, you can't log into your account in two states a minute apart. That doesn't make any sense. But if you had a requirement that you had to pick up your phone, open up an app, and type in a code to the website that was generated, a time based code, then the bad guys that had your password wouldn't be able to log in without the code. And even if they're trying to manipulate you into saying you have to give us the code, maybe that's the point where you go, maybe I shouldn't give them the code. Because, those bad guys are tricky. They know how to get you. They're experts at conning people. So multi-factor authentication comes in a couple forms, something that you know, something that you have, or something that you are. So the something you know, that's your password. The something that you have, that could be your authenticator app on your phone. It could be a physical key on your keychain that you plug in. You might have a device like this one that I have. This provides
Hmm.
a hardware authentication that I can plug into my computer. And if I want to log into Facebook, I can push the button on this in addition to putting in my password. And we use this on our phones a lot, and sometimes on your laptops, you can use your fingerprint or your Face ID to
Mhm.
unlock that secret. So is your fingerprint like totally unique? Well, not the way that computers read them. Computers read your fingerprint and make a mathematical hash out of that. So good fingerprint readers might give a false positive every like one out of 50,000 people might be able to use their fingerprint on your phone. But they also have to know the rest of the information. And the Face ID is a little better. Face ID on the iPhone is about 1 in a million people, unless your closely related child, then like a closely related child can probably Face ID into your device. But they might
So,
also,
are you saying that a face is better than a fingerprint?
the Face ID on your phone is significantly more secure than the fingerprint on your phone.
Hmm.
It's just the way they're reading it. They have more points to make a mathematical algorithm to hash that data. There's more in that Face ID camera. And the Windows Hello authentication, if you have one of those, very similar. But you add this on top of the password or the PIN, and now we have a way to really keep our accounts secure. So when the passwords get stolen, you also needed some other way to log in. So that gives you a little more protection. In the case of the bank, people are being conned out of their money on a regular basis. And maybe adding a little multi factor can help with that. The other thing to note is that the bad guys are going to go for the least possible access to steal from you. They're going to get into accounts that just have usernames and passwords first, unless you're a very high powered individual or you have specific access. And if a country is targeting you specifically, then a lot of these rules won't be enough to help you. But for the us regular people, we can go and say, yes, the best one is definitely the YubiKey or a hardware device like I have here. But that is just, you got to carry it around, you got to plug it in, you got to keep two of them. That you have an option to turn these on your Apple account or your Google account. You can do this, but it's an extra level of hassle. But notice it's the 5-star security.
Can you turn it on in DuckDuck?
Well, DuckDuckGo is not a hardware security provider.
Mhm.
So it's not, the DuckDuckGo browser or search engine is not the thing where you would want to have the highest security. This would be something you use with your bank, with your email. If you're an iPhone user and you're concerned about a nation state accessing your phone for some reason, you can enable this on your account for those like the highest security examples. Uh,
Well, what I've been wondering about
mhm.
frequently and had to go to bat against is what about if you don't have your phone? What about if you run out and need to access something and you forgot your phone at home? Or heaven forbid it slid down somewhere and you have to find it. This can happen to me.
Yeah, well, and it happens to a lot of people. So the security of having it on a separate device like your phone is great. Now
Well,
what
that's what I mean. But if
right.
you don't have your phone,
So what a lot of people do, and at least a lot of people that I know, they'll have an old device, like they have their phone now and they have their phone from before. They'll set up these authenticator apps on that other phone that still works when it's plugged in. And even though it's just on the Wi-Fi, or not even connected to the internet at all, they just have this authenticator app running and they can use it whenever they're at their computer. And that way their phone can stay, in the living room plugged in. You don't, not everyone has to carry their phone around with them.
But don't you have to pay on that phone then, just to be sitting around your living room?
No, no.
Pay for two phones?
Once you remove the SIM card or remove the eSIM from a device, it's just a handheld computer. And so
Oh,
you can use it with no internet or you can use it with Wi-Fi only. But
huh.
then you can install a lot of these authenticators. Something that I like to do is I'm using an iPhone and an iPad and a Mac computer. I bought an app that will synchronize my time-based one-time passwords, and I have 50 of those right now.
What is that?
So this software lets me get those little 6-digit codes that I have to use. You got to, when it pops up, you type in the code in order
Mm-hmm.
to once you put your password in, then you type in the code, and those
Yeah.
codes are based on a 30-second rolling time. I see you, Ray. 1 second, and so maybe it's not the best security, but I secure my computer and my iPad, and it's more convenient for me to have access to it. So I synchronize those. Yes, Ray.
I have my iPad next to my laptop. So I've got my phone, my iPad, and so I have three ways of going. But what sometimes drives me crazy when I get a text coming in for an authorization and I'm in an application, sometimes when I go back to get the code that goes in there, I go back and I've lost it. Going, it's someplace in there, but it's not where I expect it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these the text messages are I guess it's better than nothing, but they are the least secure. Now, on your iPhone, if you're sending it to the built-in messages app, and some of us don't use our actual phone number for that, so it doesn't work. But if you're using your real phone number and you're doing something in Safari or in an app, Apple will sometimes get the code from your text message or your email and put it in for you,
Yes.
which is really nice and convenient, considering that it's not the best way to go. And the default Apple iCloud security is to do a push notification to all your devices, which can sound like a storm going off when you're trying to log in and you got a bunch of things sitting around. So these are our different ways to add our extra security. And depending on your need, like Barbara asks about voice recognition. I use Charles Schwab, and there's an option to enable voice recognition. But you can clone anybody's voice with just a minute or two of their
Yep.
of their voice recorded. So I think we should never use voice authentication again. I'm not sure you
Hey,
can ever trust voice at
hey,
all.
Sable.
Yes, Richard.
I got a note or an alert from Saddleback. Alert due to an outage with Amazon Web Services, you will likely experience issues accessing student accounts, including Canvas and my site. Anybody besides me been trying to go nuts all day, figuring it was the Apple iPad I threw on the tile floor and cracked?
Well,
Was on
Richard,
the phone with Apple. Anybody
I'm
else?
not sure if you made it a few minutes late to class, but we went over all that right before the password recording. Amazon Web
I'm sorry.
Services had a big outage, and we found out the hard way that Canvas, the entire Canvas infrastructure, and most of Ellucian Banner were tied to the US East 1 data center. And I shared some thoughts on why that might be.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
No problem.
I was just glad I finally made it in.
No, it's great. I'm glad to have you here. And that's one of the reasons why we keep our Zoom separate from Canvas.
I received that, and about 3 minutes before class started, I got another a message from Saddleback saying it's up and running.
Yeah, I was monitoring
Uh,
it all day thinking, do I have to email everybody or not? So password managers, and we'll spend some more time with password managers later. So I'll cut this recording a little bit shorter, just a couple more minutes on this video. A password manager is a device that lets us store all of these in a secure, hopefully secure vault, so you don't have to remember it or have a password file on your computer. Because that was the other thing that used to happen. You'd sit down at somebody's computer and it said passwords.doc or passwords.txt.
Not hard to figure.
Right. And of course, that was perfectly fine. Really, that was perfectly fine in the 1990s. But now when a bad guy can get access to your computer, they're searching for passwords.doc. They're searching for anything that says passwords on there. So even if it's a password secure file, it it could still be stolen. So the password manager these are highly encrypted, highly secure password stores, and they're provided by everybody now. So we almost we almost have no reason not to use them anymore. So you could go with using the password manager built into Chrome. So the limitation is that you have to use Chrome to access your passwords. The password manager meets all the requirements, and my only fear is that the browser itself could be compromised and then all your passwords go with the browser. So Google spends a lot of time and money securing Chrome. It's not my choice, but it's certainly a fine choice for most people. If you're using Android and Windows, you can use Chrome to store all your passwords and you're in pretty good shape. If you're on the Apple world like Raymond is, you can use the Apple Passwords app, and your passwords will synchronize from your phone to your tablet to your computer. Then, if you need to access them in Chrome or on a Windows machine, you can log in and install the iCloud plugin, so then you can access them over there. I prefer an out of band option, one that isn't tied into Windows or Mac or the browser. And I'm using the open source Bitwarden, which we'll talk about in another video, which is completely free, no limitation, and they publish their infrastructure so you can see how do they build it. You can run Bitwarden servers on your own if you don't want to trust them, and they regularly have third-party vendors look at the code to find any potential problems and fix them. There's a few other good ones that are out there. I really like 1Password also. It was the premium deluxe expensive version in the old days, which is why I'm not using it now. But over the years, I ended up just paying for Bitwarden for the family anyway. There's a couple of nice features with the paid version, but the free version is just fine. Also, I know we have some Dashlane users here. Dashlane is fine now. It used to not be fine. In fact, you could predict the passwords in Dashlane, but I'm pretty sure they fixed all that, so I wouldn't worry about it. KeePass. If you just want to have the best password manager on your computer locally and not everywhere else, KeePass is fantastic. KeePass is specifically what I use when I'm accessing servers for a company, and I need to keep secrets that server needs, but I don't necessarily need to have all them on my own. So I'll create a KeePass database on that server, and I'll store the important information for that server in the KeePass database on that server. That's just, and then
But
I don't
that's
worry
not
about it.
good for an overall password
Well,
manager.
not it. Well, if you don't need it on your phone, if you don't mind opening KeePass and just typing it, I think it's great. So if I have a laptop, I have a
Hmm.
desktop, I can put the KeePass in my Dropbox or my sync folder. It will stay current between the two computers as long as I only open it up on one at a time. It's fine. I've also read good things about NordPass. I think if you're a Nord VPN user, that it might be okay. The Proton password manager has gotten good reviews, although I haven't spent any time really looking into it like I have with Bitwarden and LastPass and 1Password. And Mike says RoboForm, and RoboForm has been around a long time. I
Yeah, I've heard of that.
think I think the weirdest thing was they only let you have 25 passwords on one of their plans, and I thought that was just too weird, and it really kept me away. I was like, 25 passwords is not even enough for a trial. There's no reason not to just make that unlimited, or 1,000, right? Oh, we're only going to let you have 1,000 passwords on the free one. Okay. So I haven't looked into their infrastructure, but I suspect that they're fine. If you're already using RoboForm, it's probably fine. If you're already using Dashlane, it's probably fine. But if in doubt, Bitwarden, 1Password, no compromise. So, of course, the password vault, and that's why we'll have a separate talk about the password vault. Password vaults have to be secured. You want to have your multi-factor on the vault because suddenly the password vault becomes the crown jewels that you want to protect, and all the bad guys will go to that. We could talk about the LastPass breach sometime briefly. 4 people in the world had access to the LastPass backups. One of those people was running a video server from their house so they could watch all their movies. That video server was compromised. The bad guys got it to the developer laptop. They stole all the backups. And everybody that had a bad password with LastPass was getting slowly hacked. And they were doing it to steal cryptocurrency, to steal Bitcoin wallets. Yikes. Okay, so unique password per account, long. Okay, good. What's it going to look like in the future? Well, one thing that we're finally seeing happening, and I've been talking about this forever, we're finally seeing stronger security, and it's coming in the form of passkeys. So, passkeys, when they work, is a more secure authentication that only requires one click. Passkeys are more secure. I know it's not multi-factor, but it's a more secure single factor because of the public private key infrastructure that it's using. So we'll talk about passkeys a little more next week. And then what we're starting to see with Microsoft on their multi-factor is it used to be you'd get a pop-up that said, or is that you logging in? Click yes. And you could just click yes. Now it says, hey, is that you logging in? Type the number in on your screen. And then even though it's annoying and you got to like pick up your phone and type in every time you want to log in, suddenly the bad guys, and there's lots of people trying to log into your Outlook account, your Microsoft account, constantly all day, every day. I'll show you that off video on my unused Hotmail account that is constantly getting attacked. Then they can't log in because I would have to open my phone and I would have to type something in. So, and the other thing is breach monitoring. So this is something I want to take a moment before we wrap up. And this is a site. This is actually a legitimate site. I posted this in the chat for you, called Have I Been, and it's PWNED. So Have I Been Pwned? It's pronounced pwned, as in owned with a P. So what you could do is you could take one of those passwords. What was that password we just had? Oh my, it's trying to generate. Stop generating password. What was that one we had over here? So I could take this password, copy it. No one was going to be able to say that. I could paste it in here. And notice it's just giving me dots. So if I had a password that I really loved, I could type it in here. On my computer, Have I Been Pwned will make a hash of it, take a piece of that mathematical algorithm, and check against the database. So Troy, who runs this, is not going to take your password, transform it across the internet for everyone to copy. No. Say, whew. So that giant password has not been owned. But now I'm going to type in password. Just password. PASSWORD. And let me check it. And it says, oh no, 22 million times people have have the password of password. And what Have I Been Pwned does is they go grab all the breaches, all the data breaches, and they have a database and they search everything that you put in through their own database. So if we let's see, can we? Oh, it doesn't tell us here. We'll find it on another page when we check email. So let's go over who's been pwned. So they have 915 databases, 15 billion accounts, and these are all in order. Here's one that I am part of. I had to go and change my password right away. Prosper, which is a lending platform where you give Prosper money and they loan it to people like $25 loans. So Prosper was breached. I read about it on the news long before Prosper told me and went and changed my password. So Have I Been Pwned goes and grabs that data from the bad guys, puts it in the database, and then you can go and see, is my information in there? What do they have? Well, they know how much money you make. They have your date of birth. They have your credit information, your email address. They probably have your government ID because a lot of people have to upload their driver's license in order to take out a loan. So I don't like anyone getting a copy of my driver's license. So I do that as little as possible. But if you were using Prosper, on either side, I don't know. They might have your driver's license. So it's good to know, oh, it's there. Let me go and change the password or let me see what I can do to fix that. How do you fix it? Well, if they know where you live, you're probably not going to sell your house and move. So that's too bad. Your IP address will be tied into your house. You can change that with your ISP, but it's just better not to lose this. You're not going to change your date of birth or anything. Really, all you can do is change your password. So actually, let's try this. If I go to Prosper. Oh, that's the new password. I don't have the old password anymore. The new password has not been compromised. Okay, good. That's very good. So we'll use that tool a little bit in our lab time. Looks like I'm going a little longer than intended. So let's stop the video here and then we'll wrap up just a minute and take a break.